The measuring cup sits quietly in kitchens around the world, rarely questioned. It appears obvious, almost primitive, as if it belongs to the earliest chapter of human tools. But the measuring cup is not ancient in spirit. It is a response to a very specific shift in how humans share knowledge. Before standardized measurement entered the kitchen, cooking relied on embodied skill. Recipes were not written with precision because they didn't need to be. They were taught through demonstration, repetition, and adjustment. A cup was whatever cup was nearby. A spoon was a utensil already in the drawer. Quantities were relational, not fixed. This system worked remarkably well, as long as cooking remained local. The moment food knowledge began to travel, problems emerged. Written recipes required consistency. Teaching strangers required clarity. Scaling meals required predictability. Suddenly, intuition became unreliable. What one cook meant by a cup could differ wildly from another's interpretation. Results varied not because of skill, but because of translation. The measuring cup enters here, not as a culinary innovation, but as a communication device. Its most important function is not measuring ingredients. It measures agreement. It establishes a shared reference so that instructions can be followed by people who have never met, never cooked together, and never shared a kitchen. This creates an immediate design tension. Cooking does not naturally operate in rigid units. Ingredients behave differently. Flour compresses, liquids settle, temperature changes volume. A truly precise system would require weight, calibration, and environmental control. But that level of precision would make cooking inaccessible. So the measuring cup makes a deliberate compromise. It chooses volume over weight. Not because volume is better, but because it is easier. Anyone can pour. Anyone can fill to a line. No calculations required. The design accepts a margin of error in exchange for usability. That trade-off defines the object. The cup's transparency exists for more than visibility. It allows the user to approach the target gradually. You can stop early. You can correct. This matters because cooking mistakes often happen at the moment of transfer, not preparation. The measuring cup slows that moment just enough to reduce error. The handle separates the hand from the contents, protecting accuracy. Warmth, oil, and residue are kept away from grip. The spout exists not for elegance, but for control. It assumes that human hands are imperfect and compensates for that imperfection. The markings themselves are a form of instruction. They encourage attention. You cannot measure passively. You must look, align, and decide when to stop. This inserts a pause into the cooking process, which is often where mistakes are prevented. Here is where the realization begins to surface. The measuring cup is not about exactness. It is about confidence. It allows someone without deep experience to proceed without fear. It reduces the cognitive burden of judgment. Instead of asking, "Does this look right?" the user asks, "Is this at the line?" That shift matters. It lowers the barrier to participation. And that is the deeper reason the measuring cup exists in its current form. It was shaped not by expert cooks, but by non-experts, by people learning, by people following instructions written by someone else, by people who needed reassurance more than mastery. This also explains why measuring cups vary slightly across regions. The system was never meant to be scientifically perfect. It was meant to be socially functional, close enough that shared recipes work, simple enough that anyone can try. In this sense, the measuring cup is a democratizing object. It takes knowledge that once lived in muscle memory and turns it into something transferable. It allows cooking to scale beyond apprenticeship. When used by experienced cooks, measuring cups often fade away. Experts return to intuition. They adjust by feel. They taste. The tool becomes less necessary as confidence grows. That tells us something important. The measuring cup is not a permanent solution. It is a bridge. It exists to support people while knowledge is still fragile. Once understanding stabilizes, the object recedes, and that is not a failure. It is the intended life cycle. The best designed tools do not demand loyalty. They support growth and then step aside. The measuring cup embodies this philosophy quietly. It does not insist on precision. It does not enforce rules. It offers structure without authority. And when you finally notice this, the object changes. It stops being a container. It becomes a translator, a device that turns experience into instruction, judgment into reference, and uncertainty into something manageable. That is invisible design at work.